Aloha ka hiwaia o hali Hiluala lana mali e O ke one ka ulana O ke o uala O ka ihi kapu 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 mamaka O ka opua Ke ike aku Ka anapa I ka luna O ka waloala Maoli hua He puanani oia he mea la haolela Na kamakua A hele I ai Na ke kupunala He mea miri Ina ko leile huai o ala leia mai I ohu no ka wahine e wale aila.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Policy, Economic Development, Agriculture Committee. Today is October the 2nd, and it is now 9:06. And today we have with us my Vice Chair, Stacy Crivello.
Aloha and good morning.
Good morning. Bob Carroll.
Good morning, Chair.
Nice to see you.
It's good to be here.
Nice. Alika Atai.
Good morning, Chair.
Good morning. Ellie Cochran.
Aloha, good morning, Chair.
Good morning. Mike White and Ricky Hokama will be coming along with Don Guzman, and Kelly King is excused. We have Mr. White and Mr. Hokama here. Thank you very much, gentlemen. From the administration, we have Mike Molina, Executive Assistant to the Mayor.
Good morning, Madam Chair.
Thank you. We have our first Deputy Corp Counsel, which is Ed Kushi. And Staff Legislative Analyst Shelley Espelita. Good morning, Shelley. And we have Committee Secretary Clarita Balala, Hana District Offices, we have Don Lono online, Lanai District Office, Denise Fernandez, and Molokai District Office, Ella Elkon. Thank you, members. Today we have 2 items on our agenda. We're taking up the Board and Commission nomination for the Lanai Planning Commission, which is PEA 216, and after that we're going to deal with the Maui County Legislative Package for 2018, which is PEA 4-1. So this morning, I'd like to invite all people who are interested in testifying to sign up in the table in the back. And if you're planning on testifying in the district offices, please also sign up. Today we'll be limited to the items listed on the agenda, and all testifiers will have 3 minutes to testify. I call it like a traffic light. Light will be green when you start testifying. At 2.5 minutes, the light will turn yellow, and then it'll blink red to stop. We appreciate everybody who's here, and when you come to testify, please state your name and the organization you may be representing. We have established connections to all district offices. At this time, I'd like to call the first testifier, which is Kimberly Scott, who is here to testify on PEA 4-1. Hi, Kimberly. Please come up to the podium. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kimberlyn Scott, and the only reason that I'm here is because my daughter was murdered 3.5 years ago, and that's why I'm addressing the victims' rights issue. I'm very grateful that this opportunity has presented itself. I do have to ask a question, though. I'm kind of surprised that we're still here. Victims' rights were acknowledged as an issue in the 70s, and Hawaii is way behind. It's way behind. We do not acknowledge what victims go through, and I can prove that our own prosecutor's office made several public statements in the press, to the press, about victims' rights.
Kimberlyn can speak into the mic.
Yes.
And you can bring it down to you, too.
Okay.
If you need. Good.
Okay, thank you. Our own prosecutor's office has made public statements as to the fact that there are no rights for victims and that our state does not acknowledge victims at all. And that's the word they used, at all. And so I'm really kind of surprised that we're still here talking about this when this is such an issue and so many people are affected by violent crime. We have, on average, 3,000 violent crimes per year in this state, and the average is about 10 people who are affected by whoever was hurt by this violent crime. That's a lot of people. And when you start adding that up, that's a lot of people with no rights. And I have no voice. When Charlie was murdered, I became the only one able to speak for her, and I am ignored consistently. If I tell you all that I have literally been yelled at by prosecutors, that my advocate has sat next to me and been able to do nothing about it, nothing, because her paycheck is signed by the prosecutor's office, okay? This is a problem. That means she can't do her job, okay? We have the right to speak. I've literally been told, again, I'll ask you, would you believe me if I tell you that I have literally been told, yeah, you can talk, but I don't have to listen to you. I don't have to acknowledge what you've said. And these are by the people who are in charge of our justice system. So I'm really hoping that questions will be asked of me. I have no problem with speaking about personal things that have happened. I want to help change, to facilitate change. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone have questions for the testifier? Ms. Cochran.
Thank you, and thank you, Ms. Scott, for being here this morning. I know it's difficult to go through this. So you are obviously in support of the item that's being proposed today.
Yes, I am.
To input in regards to 801D HRS and the Bill of Rights for Victims and Witnesses. So, and you shared, you sent in written testimony, I see, and these are basically in your written a lot, the main points that have, living examples that had occurred, you feel?
Yes, they are some of them.
And was there anything else that you wanted to share that
There are many things, but to keep it as brief as possible, for example, it is common for defense attorneys to subpoena victim witnesses, and the only reason that they do it is to keep those victims out of the courtroom. It's not illegal. It shouldn't be a legal maneuver, but because of the way victims have no rights, this is used against them. It happened to my entire family. We were not allowed in a courtroom where my daughter's murder trial was ongoing. And during these proceedings, I can't help but believe that the over 20 times that the courtroom erupted in laughter, there were jokes told. This was extremely disrespectful to me, to my family, to Charlie. This was a murder trial. I cannot help but believe that if family members had been present, been allowed to be present, there would have been a different atmosphere in that courtroom. And that's just one example. And due process is a huge issue for victims because we don't have that. We are told we can't be present. I was never even served the subpoena. We fought to get it. We were never given it, but that subpoena kept me out of court. That's going against due process, and it happens every day in this state. And I didn't even have the opportunity, really, truly. All I was asking for was the right to approach the judge and ask him to hear our side of it. And we were denied even that. And had the judge been able to listen to us and then said, no, we think that this would have ill-affected later testimony, I would have accepted that. But the fact that I was denied even the opportunity to ask anyone, and the people who were supposed to represent me literally were telling me that I could speak, but they didn't have to listen.
Well, again, thank you for your time and sharing with us today.
Thank you very much.
Anyone have any more questions? See none. Thank you very much. Next testifier is Barb Barry, testifying on PA 216 and PA 41.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, council members. Before I talk about any of this county stuff here this morning, I just want to spend a moment and acknowledge everyone that was murdered in cold blood in Las Vegas this morning, and all of the people that are injured and everyone that this has impacted. It is another senseless tragedy, and hopefully somewhere, someplace in our country, we will have the ability to talk about guns and assault rifles and why people even have those things. So just wanted to acknowledge this because we shouldn't just go on with business as usual. We should stop and take the time to acknowledge what's going on in our country. So, okay. In regards to Shelley Preza, I don't know if she is going to appear before council and allow people to ask questions of her that they might have, but I would hope that that would be the case before she is considered further for this nomination. I think it's really important that everyone have a chance to talk to her personally, and her being on the record as far as how she would possibly recuse herself if she was in a conflict of interest with some of the other positions that she holds. Moving on. In regards to the Bill of Rights for victims, I wholeheartedly support this. It was heart-wrenching to hear how people are treated in this criminal justice system in Hawaii. It's inappropriate, and unless someone steps up to say what she has said and people support her, this will just continue on and on. People that are victims need to be able to be protected and have the right to speak and be heard. In regards to the prohibition of sunscreens that have oxybenzone, and forget it. The second one that's on here. I totally support this. We have way too many things that are compromising our reefs, and with everyone coming here and needing sunscreen, especially during the winter months, we have mass quantities of this toxic material going into our ocean waters and onto our reefs, and it is proven to be damaging. So I totally support that ban. In regards to the increasing the revenue for the county's affordable housing fund through an additional 1% conveyance tax on properties valued at more than $2 million, I totally support that. I would like to actually see conveyance tax added on a few other things, but that's not on the agenda, so I'm just going to support that. And in regards to the $15 minimum wage, this is a no-brainer. Nobody here, none of your kids, nothing, can afford to live on $15 an hour. So with the increased cost of housing, with increased cost of food, gas, everything that we pay for here, people trying to live on $15 an hour is not, less than $15 an hour is not happening. People are, it's stressing out families. Kids are showing up with less food on their tables because their parents are working 2 or 3 jobs. And actually, it should be $20 an hour minimum wage. So $15 is really poverty level in my view. So any questions? Thank you. I'm done.
Thank you. Anyone have questions for the testifier? Seeing none, thank you very much for being here.
Mahalo.
Mahalo. At this time now, we'll go to our district offices. In Lanai, Denise, any testifiers? Denise? We're having a connection problem.
Chair, this is Denise Fernandez on Lanai, and there is no one waiting to testify.
Thank you, Denise. Anyone from the HANA office, Don Lono? Hello, Don. Don?
Good morning. This is Dawn Lono at the HANA office, and there is no one waiting to testify.
Molokai District Office, Ella Alcon. Do you have anyone there to
Good
testify?
morning, Chair. This is Ella Alcon on Molokai, and there is no one here waiting to testify.
Thank you. We have no one in district offices. Thank you. We have one more testifier in the chambers, Rosemary Robbins.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
October 2, 2017. I would like to speak this morning. I've already been here before for most of what's on the agenda, but on behalf of PEA-4, parentheses 1, and reading from our agenda, the purpose of the proposed resolution is to approve for inclusion in the Maui County legislative package a proposed state bill. Attached to the proposed resolution is Exhibit A, entitled "The Bill for an Act Relating to the Conveyance Tax." The purpose of the proposed state bill is to increase revenue for each county's affordable housing fund through an additional 1% conveyance tax on the sale of condominium or single-family residential properties with a value of more than $2 million. Some thoughts on that math that's going around. Yesterday's Star Advertiser, front page, Section B, failure to spend money in a timely manner cost the city of Honolulu $2.4 million in federal home funds, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development told the Caldwell administration in a letter last month. On Friday, HUD, Housing Urban Development, federal monies, confirmed that the city could be at risk of losing as much as $7.5 million in upcoming federal community development block grant funds, also because of an inability to spend the money quickly enough. Honolulu. This morning's paper here on Maui, in the Ask the Mayor section, somebody wrote in and asked about, I'll read it. While there are a number of concrete or reinforced buildings and underground parking garages in our county that could conceivably hold up in a major hurricane at present, here's the kick. None. There are no existing public shelters in Maui County that could withstand a Category 4 or 5 hurricane. The whole world is aware of what's happening with housing for folks. So please, get that through.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions for Ms. Robbins? See none. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
At this time, then, there's no other people standing by to testify. I'm going to close public testimony, members. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to go to the first item on our agenda, which is relating to the appointment of Shelley Preza as a Native Hawaiian traditional and customary practices expert to the Lanai Planning Commission. And we'll be taking up this item. And Mr. Molina, do you have any comments?
Yes. Good morning, Madam Chair and committee members. The administration would like your consideration of Ms. Shelley Preza as the nominee to serve on the Lanai Planning Commission. Ms. Preza is a Keiki-o-ka-aina. She is originally from Lanai. We feel she would make an excellent voice to represent the next generation of Lanaians as far as the island's future goes. She is a graduate of Kamehameha Schools and also a graduate of Harvard University. She's currently employed by Pulama Lanai as an interpretive resource management specialist, and she also served as a volunteer over at the Lanai Cultural and Heritage Center, and she was mentored there by a well-known local historian, Mr. Kepa Male. And we feel that she has made by the way, as far as the interview, a very impressive interview with this young lady. She's very articulate and very knowledgeable of local issues, federal issues, and so she would make quite an excellent resource on the Lanai Planning Commission. And we also will be designating her as a Hawaiian cultural expert. The way the ordinance currently reads, you can have more than one person if you choose. And I'd also like to add, Councilmember Hokama made a couple of suggestions a few meetings ago with regards to some of the current planning commissioners there as possible Hawaiian cultural experts. I did speak to Mr. John De La Cruz and Mr. Brad Oshiro. They at first were very appreciative of the designation, but politely declined the designation. With regards to Millicent Martin, she is more than happy to accept the role as a Hawaiian cultural expert, and we will have that resolution coming to you shortly. So at this point, those are the two individuals that we will designate as Hawaiian cultural experts with your approval. So with that being said, Madam Chair, I'm open for questions.
So Mr. Molina, so how long has she been employed?
Fairly recently, only about a year. She just recently graduated from Harvard, so she's about roughly in her early 20s and recently came home. And her intent was she has a very extreme passion to serve her community and to be an excellent voice for the next generation of Lanaians.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hokama, do you have any comments?
Did we ask her to attend our Lanai district office by chance, Chair?
I'm sorry, what?
Did we request her to at least attend our district office? Okay, we want her
to have Denise call her to come in.
No, I just wanted to know if she's at the office.
Oh, no, there's no testifiers.
Okay, well, my apologies. I should have formally put it in. I just made an assumption, so I apologize for that assumption. I can tell you, I know this girl in a sense of seeing her a few times as she grew up. I know her parents very well. I knew her uncle very well, the late Bobby Amaro. I know both grandparents, both sets of grandparents. They're old families of the island, on the mother's side as well as the father's side. So I understand what Lanai means to her. I do not discount her academia, her accomplishments. It's a statement of fact, and I applaud her achievements. The one thing I would ask, if there's a way we can get her to respond, is about her this island experience. And to me, that's just a few things that the island has chatted to me over this past weekend. I've been home for Fifth Friday, which was nice, and of course, our festivals of Aloha on Saturday. So, thank you, Stacey. Right there was just kick-ass awesome. So, thank you so much for that. Right there. But then again, I think that's a fair question to ask the nominee. Just some of her life experience regarding the island. And if we can get that might be very helpful for me and the community. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Hokama. I'd like to also formally welcome Mr. Guzman to the committee. Thank you.
Morning, Chair.
And as you know, Mr. Hokama's here, and Mr. White also joined us. I didn't formally welcome you, so thank you for coming to the committee meeting. So those are good comments. Mr. Molina.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just want to also add, her term will be expiring March 31st, 2018, so it's a very short-term appointment, and she would be eligible for a full 5 years. So I just wanted to add that to the record in the event the mayor chooses to re-nominate her in the future, and of course, upon your confirmation as well. Thank you.
Members, anybody else have any questions or comments? So, Mr. Hokama, yes, Stacey Crivello.
Am I hearing Mr. Hokama requesting that we reschedule this till till he has the opportunity to interview her further?
I'm sorry, I apologize.
Yes, Mr. Hokama.
I just was going to ask, is that doable first, because there is a clock placed on this committee, so I'm not sure.
It's a time schedule. Yeah, we're at a time schedule.
So many days. So
we right. Mr. Kushi, I think we had to hear this today so we can meet the time schedule for the nominee.
Madam Chair,
10:30 is the deadline.
Your agenda states that the council must approve it by October 31st. So as long as you get it before the next council meeting before October 31st.
One moment.
I'm not sure.
So, would we, Shelley?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I believe if we pass this out of committee today, it'll be up for the council meeting on October 20th, which will be right in time for our deadline to meet the October 31st.
So could we, if we had her come before us at our next PA meeting, Shelley, would that meet the deadline? When is the council meeting after that? The next PA meeting is on is it the 12th?
Your next PA meeting, Madam Chair, is on October 16th and 17th.
16th and 17th.
So we would have to do a discharge in order to meet the October 20th council meeting deadline.
Okay, so members, could I ask that we do that just so that we can have the nominee come before us so we can, or ask questions through the district office, I'm sorry, not come to our chambers. Is that okay, members? Can we defer this today, and then we'll ask for her to appear at the October 16th meeting via telecommunications so that members can ask her questions?
No objections.
No objections? Okay, members, I'm going to defer this item until October 16th agenda.
Sure.
Yes, Ms. Cochran.
Thank you, Chair. Before we move on, and so I had asked some people of the island also just in reference to this nominee, and to my great surprise, her great-great-grandmother Mary or Malia Kuikahi Amaral is laying at rest at my church, Waiоla, in our graveyard. So we have many, many Lanai people there, and so I actually clean the area on a regular basis. So that was quite, nice to sort of put more reference behind the headstone and graves that I see daily. So also the point that, she has deep ties, very deep. And obviously if great-great-grandparents were part of Waiоla, which is the oldest Hawaiian church on the island, then should she have learned and heard the stories throughout the years and generations, then she surely does have a deep tie to the island, and especially in its culture, and especially the Hawaiian aspect. So I would have some questions, though, for her in reference to what her role is with Pulama Lanai, states interpretive resource management specialist, and not quite sure what that means exactly as her role. And if she does have any political affiliation, it says none, but I wonder if perhaps maybe she does at this time in her life. If so, what that would be, and that would probably be about my two main questions for her when we have her back on the 16th.
Thank you, Ms. Cochran.
Thank you.
Members, any other questions? Seeing none, I'm going to defer this so that we can take it up at the October 16th, the next PA meeting. Thank you very much, members. At this time, I'm going to move on our agenda, and we're going to be taking up Maui County Legislative Package 2018 Maui County, our Maui County package, which is PA 41. And the first item on our agenda that we're going to take up, well, thank you, Mr. Molina, for being here. We're going to take up approving for inclusion in the 2018 Maui County Legislative Package a state bill relating to the enforcement of basic bill of rights of victims and witnesses. It is also Exhibit A attached a bill for an act relating to victims' rights. And the purpose of the proposed bill, state bill, is to allow for more stringent enforcement of the basic bill of rights of victims and witnesses by holding implementing parties accountable. So at this time, we're going to take up the first item. This is Ms. Cochran. Do you have any comments about this?
Sorry. Yes. So, Madam Chair, we had spoken about this on your September 18th meeting. And so this proposed bill allows for stringent enforcement of the basic bill of rights for victims and witnesses, which is codified in Section 801D-4 of the HRS, and there is a copy of that for everyone. By holding the parties that are responsible for the implementation of this bill of rights accountable in the event their efforts fall short. Sorry, Mr. Kushi, you have a copy? He had a perplexed look on his face. According to Section 8001D-1 of the HRS, the Basic Bill of Rights for Victims and Witnesses exists to ensure that all victims and witnesses of crimes are treated with dignity, respect, courtesy, and sensitivity, and that these rights are to be honored and protected by law enforcement agencies, prosecutors, and judges in a manner no less vigorous than the protections afforded the criminal defendants. So the Bill of Rights, as part of treating victims with respect and dignity, requires that victims be notified of court proceedings they have an interest in, receive protection from threats of harm or actual harm, or informed of social service and financial assistance available to them, have personal property returned to them by law enforcement agencies in a timely manner, and are informed of changes in the custodial status of the offender, such as release from prison, furlough, parole, etc. And these points, members, are in that HRS handout. Victims and witnesses are also supposed to be informed of the final disposition of the case, and if the crime is a felony, they are to be updated regarding major developments in the case, including if the offender is released from custody. For many of these requirements, the law requires that these actions take place in a timely manner. These basic rights are in place to help ensure victims and witnesses are treated with fairness and not cause any further harm or stress during already stressful and sensitive times. So this proposed bill allows those who implement the Basic Bill of Rights to be held accountable for implementing the requirements of the statute by allowing victims and witnesses to take legal action against them in their official capacity if they feel their rights have been violated. As the statute is currently worded, state or county officers are immune from civil liability if they fail to carry out the requirements of this section 801D-4. The intent of this proposed bill is to remove this immunity and put those responsible for implementing the Bill of Rights on notice that their failure to do so carries serious consequences for themselves as well as their agency. So that is all my reasons for bringing this up and hopefully putting this into our Maui legislative package, Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Cochran. I wondered when I read this, Ms. Cochran, so did you notify the prosecuting attorney's office of this proposed legislation, or did you have any communication with them?
No, we did not.
So I wonder what the impact would be. Mr. Kushi, can you?
Yes.
So the impact of this legislation, the proposed legislation, can you give us a corp counsel opinion about this?
From my office, I cannot comment on this. I'm not a prosecutor. Mr. Kim should be here, as well as the other prosecutors of the counties, as well as the state attorney general's office. My office will not comment on this at this time.
Okay, it's a state issue. Any other members have any questions? No? No, none?
Sure.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
No, I don't. Yeah, I mean, there's the main HRS Bill of Rights, but then we follow it, and that's where on this county level, our own prosecutor's office and prosecutors, and perhaps Mr. Guzman knows more, but follow it, and there's, for me, a glitch or something in here, this portion that I feel is needed to be adjusted in order to make it more stringent and hold the powers that be accountable for their actions and the way the victims are treated, and that's basically why Ms. Scott is here and has submitted her 5-6 page testimony to us. Is she has firsthand experiences where these types of things in my opening comments were violated on her behalf, and so she perhaps there's others, but she has come out and wanted to state this because she sees others going through the same thing and would like to have it addressed. And I've decided to listen and to push this forward to see if it can go through. And that's all I'm asking at this point. So hopefully it's given a chance.
Members, by understanding what you're trying to do, and I understand the plight that the Scott family has gone through, and I sympathize with them also. I wonder, though, on this one item, if we need to hear from prosecuting attorney's office, and because the change of this kind of law would affect all the other counties in a statewide level, is kind of over and beyond, I think, just our county level, and it has far-reaching impacts. May I ask that we defer this until we can get prosecuting attorneys to come before us? Members, do you have any comments?
Sure. Yeah. My only concern, if there is to be one, is the deadline, and am I going to miss another deadline for another submittal?
So as you know, this is a Maui legislative package. This is not HSAC, which has to go back and forth between HSAC, Executive Committee, and us. So we have some time, and I would like to spend the time, ask the right questions, just so that we don't venture on something that is really a lot bigger territory, it looks like, than what is before us today. Mr. Guzman.
Oh, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to follow up, but what is the time exactly?
So
timetable that we're looking at?
I believe that, and maybe Ms. Crivello and Mr. White, Mr. Okama can correct me, but as you know, legislature starts January, middle of the month of next year. And from what I heard is if we could get items to the legislature by November, that would be a good time. So we have this month to do it. This is not HSAC. This is our own package. So that's the kind of difference in terms of timeline. We are waiting for the HSAC legislative package to come before us, at which time we'll hear that. But this is going to be separate on our own. So members, with your permission, I would like to defer this until we can maybe ask prosecuting attorney to come before us and make some general comments on what the impact of this would be. Yes, Mr. Hokama.
And if the resources you plan to bring back, I would say might be helpful for people like me is since we become responsible for enforcement, who's the enforcement people of this county?
Okay. So also police?
Well, I don't know who's going to enforce this law.
Mr. Guzman.
And this is just my own opinion. It appears as though it's allowing civil suits, not necessarily an enforcement of its own accord, but the ability for citizens to sue on some of these, I guess, requirements that are stated in the legislation. Other than that, I don't see any other enforcing body.
Okay, thank you. At this time, members, I'm going to defer this for further discussion. Thank you.
And sorry, Chair, I had a further comment. So thank you, Mr. Guzman, and that is, a main point in why this is being proposed. But I'm just kind of wondering how, because this is holding a particular department accountable for upholding existing written law, and we're hearing testimony saying that it hasn't been. So to bring in people who, this is hoping to be held accountable for upholding a law to come and comment, I don't know, seems strange to me. It's something that they ought to be doing, and it's being stated it's not. So unless they're going to come in and try and counter these comments in the testimony or something to that sort, I don't really understand. And I'm just curious, this has been here on the agenda previously and now, and you're just asking that now to have the department here? I'm not sure, or have you reached out?
Yes, so I have not reached out to the prosecuting attorney's office. So we will. I'm going to defer this, members, and we can talk about it at the next meeting. No objections? Thank you.
No objections.
Thank you. So at this time, I'm going to take up the next item, which is also from Ms. Cochran, approving the inclusion in the 2018 Maui County Legislative Package, which is to increase the revenue of each county's affordable housing fund through an additional 1% conveyance tax on properties valued at more than $2 million. And also Exhibit A, a bill for an act relating to the conveyance tax. So, Ms. Cochran.
Thank you, Chair. And this one we had spoken about at that last PEA And this bill included in this package was sent to HSAC, and it proposes a conveyance tax of 1% paid by the buyer on sales of properties over $2 million. And revenues collected will go to an affordable housing fund overseen by the county in which the property was sold. Then this is an emergency tax which will be used to fund solutions to our housing crisis. And the tax will be repealed on June 30, 2023, so 5 years from now. And this is not a new or radical type idea. Aspen and Pitkin County, Colorado used a very similar tax to pull itself out of a desperate workforce housing crisis. And the city officials said that the taxes are a critical part of Aspen's long-term strategy to deal with the lack of affordable housing. And the tax has been so successful that in 2008, Aspen voters decided to extend the tax to the year 2040 instead of letting it expire in 2024 as scheduled. So we can predict that state legislatures might argue that we should raise RPT rates instead of approving this conveyance tax. But the reality is that I don't want to raise our taxes on our struggling local families. And Hawaii's property values are already so high that even our low RPT rates create high annual taxes. So the intent here is to not raise taxes on our local workforce homeowners, but instead to tax the purchase of luxury properties in order to mitigate impacts that purchase has on our local housing market. And 50% of this current conveyance tax goes to the Affordable Rental Fund, which is managed by the state. While I recognize that the importance of that fund, I would also like to increase revenues for affordable housing funds that are within the control of county government. I'm also aware that legislature is not fond of special funds because of the opportunity for misuse. So to appease these concerns, there is language in this bill that specifies allowed uses of these revenues, similar to what is in the Maui County Affordable Housing Fund language. I submitted a similar bill as part of our HSAC package last session, and it was approved by the council. It was supported by every other county except for Kauai. And I'm hoping that raising the threshold of the tax from $1 million to $2 million will bring Kauai on board this year, and that we can have this conveyance conversation at the state legislature. So at the very least, efforts like this by the county to come up with more locally controlled revenue sources will perhaps highlight the need for the state to give us our fair share of the TAT. And that's my explanation for submitting this today, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cochran. As members, as you know, we did discuss this when we looked at our HSAC package, and it is actually on the council agenda, which is this Friday, to be voted on. So at this time, anybody else have any questions or comments regarding this? Seeing none. At this time, I'd like to then recommend adoption of the revised proposed legislation, which to include this in the Maui County legislative package for the state bill to increase revenues for each county's affordable housing fund through an additional 1% of conveyance tax on the properties valued of more than $2 million.
Chair, I move to approve the resolution for inclusion in the 2018 Maui County legislative package, a state bill to increase revenue for each county's affordable housing fund through an additional 1% conveyance tax.
Second.
Thank you. Motion by Member Cochran, second by Member Crivello. Any discussion, members? Seeing none at this time, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Seeing none, there are 8 of us with ayes and 1 excuse, which is Member Kelly King. At this time, I'm going to take up now the proposed legislation regarding the sunscreening, the oxybenzone and oxynoxate. One moment. And on this, members, we are going to be looking at the revised legislation that was submitted on September 25th, transmitted to us by Ellie Cochran. So we're going to be looking at this legislation when we talk about this. Ms. Cochran, do you have any comments?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So this proposed bill bans the sale of sunscreen and personal care products that contain the chemicals oxybenzone and octinoxate, if I got that right. Oxybenzone and octinoxate have significant impacts on the environment and ecosystems, and especially the marine environment. These compounds have been shown to kill and degrade coral and to have impacts on both invertebrate species like sea urchins and vertebrate species, including various species of fish, wrasses, and eels. In addition, they have been shown to have impacts on marine mammals such as our Hawaiian monk seal. Given the popularity of our water activities in the state of Hawaii, environmental contamination levels are refreshed in our waters daily from the use of sunscreen containing these chemicals. Without action, these chemicals can continue to cause irreparable damage to our ocean and reefs. And this proposed bill prohibits the sale of sunscreen and personal care products containing these chemicals throughout the state of Hawaii. And this prohibition would be added to Section 328 Hawaii Revised Statutes, which regulates food, drugs, and cosmetics. Therefore, this section would automatically be subject to the outlined penalties and exceptions included in Part 1 of the Hawaii Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. And it's definitely have actual banning and prohibitions across in some parts of the world and other states. So I'd like our state to follow suit. And that's my reason for submittal. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Members, do you have any questions or concerns regarding this? It's Mr.
Chair.
White.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I support this wholeheartedly. I think this is a very good thing to do. I would like Corp Council's thoughts on whether we can include a prohibition on the use of the product.
Mr. Kushi.
Madam Chair, Member White, I haven't looked at it. It's a good question. There may be some authority for you to ban the sale and presence of the product, but I'm not sure about the use. Then you get into personal applications. I'm not sure if it's a crime to use the product. So I can't answer that at this point in time. But again, if considered, this would be an HRS state legislation, and it needs to be applicable statewide in all state waters. So maybe at that point in time, the powers that are who would enact that would consider your question.
Mr. White.
Madam Chair, I would like to offer an amendment to include the use. And when it gets to the legislature, if they feel that it's inappropriate to take that position, they can remove it. But I think it's important for us to make the statement that we want to ban this from the ocean. And there are a lot of people that come to Hawaii with sunscreen that they've purchased elsewhere. So even if we are eliminating the sale, we're not going to necessarily have a direct impact. We've taken the approach that we are no longer selling, and we also are putting a communication in each guest room that says, please don't use these products. But if we can make that statement a little stronger, then I'd like to do so.
Okay, so you would like to amend this to also,
Yeah, I would.
instead of
like-
sale, you want to say ban the use of?
It
Or-
shall be unlawful to sell, offer for sale, use, or distribute for sale sunscreen or personal care products containing. So just adding the words to use
To use.
after the portion offer for sale.
In the, I'm sorry, is it in the resolution, Mr. Wade?
Yes, I'm sorry. Not in the resolution, it's in the proposed bill. It's on the second page, line 16.
So it shall be unlawful to sell,
Or maybe it would be easier to say, shall be unlawful to use, sell, offer for sale, or distribute for sale.
okay,
So that's my motion.
okay. So at this time, Ms.
I'll
Cochran.
second it for discussion.
Okay, so members, what we're looking at is in the bill on page number 2, the second to last paragraph, the inclusion is going to read it under A, it shall be unlawful to use, sell, offer for sale, or distribute for sale sunscreen or personal care products that contain oxybenzone or oxynoxate unless the product is a prescription drug as defined in section 328-12. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's
Thank you,
just
Chair.
here. Okay. Any discussion, members? Yes, Ms.
Sure.
Cochran.
Yeah, and I appreciate Mr. White looking at this at a more, restrictive measure. So that was one of the main questions from the last time this was brought to the floor. And so I completely support, sale and use. And we mull this around, and I think the hardest part about the word use is the how and the who would enforce that. And also what would penalties be and all those other things we always talk about when an enforcement issue comes up. And so my thinking and why I propose this the way it is, the ban on the point of sale or distribution would dramatically decrease the amount of these chemicals entering our waters. And it'd be a good educational tool for residents and visitors, such as Aston Resorts have already put oxybenzone-free sunscreen and sunscreen dispensers all around their properties in the state of Hawaii, and that alone has educated their guests to make better decisions about their sunscreens, even when they're off property or incoming to the property. So I would support sweeping legislation like this to include safe sale and use. But I have concerns that the law would not pass because of these enforcement details, and that's why I kind of looked at this as our first step to focus on sale only. And it had gone through last year through the state, and it got shot down. So I was trying to work it to where it'd be a lot more palatable. Hopefully, this time around, it wouldn't just die. With just the sale portion, because I really think the use and the issues with enforcement and all the penalty and all that stuff hasn't really been vetted or worked out, and they might just say this is a can of worms and we don't want to talk about it and kill it. So that's my my concern right now about that. So I was just trying to do one little baby step and focus just on the sale portion at this time. Thank you.
Mr. White.
Thank you,
Then
Chair.
Mr.
I understand Ms. Cochran's concern, but at the same time, the purpose of passing these items on to the state are to show intent. And I think it's very easy for them to take out the use if they don't feel it's appropriate. But we still have availability, even if we stop anyone who operates here on the island from selling these products. There's nothing to stop people from purchasing the same products online and or bring them from the mainland with them. So I think I would still prefer to insert the use language as proposed, because I think it shows our intent is to stop the usage. And so I'll stand my ground on the amendment. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Kushi.
Yeah, Madam Chair, members, not to confuse you further, but based on Mr. White's question, I started thinking about it, is that I understand the intent of the prohibition of this substance. Whether it's declared an illegal substance, that's for them to decide. But what if, and the intent is not to get this chemical into our reefs, our ocean waters. What if it never gets there? What if somebody uses it in your swimming pool or at a baseball field and never goes into the ocean? Are they affected too? Or are you saying it's a point of source situation where the swimming pool waters goes to the ocean? So those are issues, I think, logistical issues that should be considered.
No, I agree, but I think it's, if we're going to ban the products to protect our reefs, then we should ban the use. And I realize there are other places you can use the product, but I think the intent is to get the products out of reach of people, because they're not going to know whether it's okay to use it at the beach or the pool or just sitting on a lounge chair. So.
But if they use it at the pool, it doesn't affect the reefs.
No, I understand that, but I mean, we put up signs all the time that are just simply ignored. So I think
whatever, just my comments.
Thank you.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, I wonder also then, if we're talking about this with use and sale, do we need to change the heading of the title of the proposed legislation to also include use, sale or distribution for sale? So approving for legislation in the 2018 Maui County Legislative Package as a state bill prohibiting the use, sale, or distribution for sale of skincare products containing oxybenzone and oxynoxate. So just to make it clearer on that. And then the resolution would then also be changed so that be it resolved, number one, that the proposed state bill attached as Exhibit A to prohibit the use, sale of, or distribution for sale of skincare products containing oxybenzone. So that first paragraph would also change. The bill title would not change. But I do see that throughout the bill, if we are going to add use, that we would have to insert it where it's appropriate. Like, for example, on page 2, on the second paragraph, on page 2 again, the fourth paragraph would also get affected.
Chair.
Yes.
Maybe take a 5-minute recess and have your staff write it up.
Okay. Thank you. Take a 5 I'm reconvening my Policy, Economic Development, Agriculture Committee. At this time, we're going to we're going to put this discussion about the oxybenzone and to the last item on the agenda so that staff can make changes as was discussed. And I'm going to take up the next item, which is a proposed resolution approving for inclusion in the 2018 Maui County Legislative Package a state bill to increase the state minimum wage to $15 per hour, and for employees with 26 employees or more beginning January 1, 2021, or for employees with 25 employees or less beginning January 1, 2023. Also attached in Exhibit A is a bill for an act relating to the minimum wage. At this time, we have, but we're going to be using the proposed legislation dated September 25th on the same item, which was also submitted to you. Ms. Cochran?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And as we discussed, when vetting this proposal for inclusion in the HSAC 2018 package. The purpose of this proposed resolution is to continue the state's efforts to incrementally increase the minimum wage so that we can finally start the process of bringing our workforce income in line with our high cost of living. And the revised proposed bill addresses challenges that mom and pop and small businesses have with increasing the amount being paid to their employees by tailoring the yearly increases or steps to businesses with 25 employees or less on the one hand, and businesses with 26 employees or more on the other hand. So for employers with 25 employees or less, the proposed steps are as follows. An increase to $11.10 per hour on January 1st, 2019, $12.25 per hour on January 1st, 2020, $13.35 per hour on January 1st, 2020, $14.25 per hour on January 1st, 2022, and $15 per hour on January 1st, 2023. And for employers with 26 or more, the employees or more, the proposed steps would be $12 per hour starting January 1st, 2019, $13.50 per hour starting January 1st, 2020, and then the $15 per hour beginning January 1st, 2021. And this proposed bill also incorporates considerations relating to tipped employees by amending the current HRS language for tip credits, which allows for employers to factor tips into an employee's salary and adjusting this accordingly for the proposed rise in the minimum wage. The tip credit would be raised to $1.25 from a previous 75 cents in 2021 for employers of 26 employees or more, and would be effective for employers with 25 employees or less in 2023, when the minimum wage reaches that $15 per hour mark. So that is my summary of my points as to why I'm recommending this proposal. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Member Cochran. Anyone have any other comments regarding this? Mr. White.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate Ms. Cochran's focus on this, but I still am unable to support the measure for a couple of reasons. Number one, the tip credit is a very small amount. It always has been, and the amount of paperwork that's required to file for the tip credit is a very significant amount. And in many cases, for many employers on the island, the amount of money that tipped employees make is significantly higher than those that are working for a regular wage, and you know, the average is more than double what the amount is of this proposal. So that's one portion of my concern. The other portion is that the measure still does not take into consideration the cost of medical care. So I can understand this kind of a guarantee wage for those who are working part-time and not being provided any medical coverage at all. But for many of us, the provision of medical coverage costs $5 an hour. So because of that, I don't feel that this reflects the realities of what's out there. I know it does affect the realities for the folks that are working part-time and in some cases full-time, but I think for many people there will be an added cost to the employer and a significant increase cost for the employer. So again, I support the concept but not the execution. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. White. Anyone else have any comments? Okay, so at this time, members, I also want to let you know that I did my own survey with my some of the upcountry markets that we have up there, and I think that the opinion of the owners were a little bit cautious in that their unexpected cost is what I was told that comes up, and to see a jump that we're going to go to, I think it's $10.10 next year, and for it to jump to the 15, it was a little bit startling for them, and that they were kind of cautious, saying that we would need to see what the economy is like and where we are. So I agree with Mr. White in that I appreciate the intent of this, and I think it's a good thing if we could spend a little bit more time on it. So, so I would be also not supporting it. But at this time, members, I would like to ask for a motion on this. So do we ask for?
Yeah. Sure.
Ms. Cochran.
Okay, Chair, I'll give it a shot. I move to approve the revised proposed resolution approving for inclusion in the 2018 Maui County Legislative Package a state bill to increase the state minimum wage to $15 per hour for employers with 26 employees or more beginning January 1st, 2021, and for employers with 25 employees or less beginning January 1st, 2023.
Thank you. Do I hear a second? Second, Mr. Hokama. So motion by Member Cochran, second by Member Hokama. And any discussion? Seeing none, at this time I'd like to take a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no.
No.
So 1, 2, 3, 4 noes. Mr. Otai is not here, and Mr. Guzman and Kelly King. So there's 3 excused. So what are we at? 3, 4, 3, 7, and 2 support, right? Hokama and Ellie Cochran. So motion fails. At this time, I'm going to now go into a short recess until we can get back the last item on our agenda. So members will be in recess until we see Shelley come back with the proposed oxybenzene proposal. I'm calling back the meeting for the Policy, Economic Development, and Agriculture. And the last item on our agenda today before we conclude is the approving for inclusion in the 2018 Maui County Legislative Package a state bill prohibiting the sale of skincare products containing oxybenzone and oxynoxate. And as you know, we are right now, all of you were passed a proposed resolution with the amendment from Mr. White. Mr. White?
Sorry, Chair, but it's very hard to.
Yeah, we're having color printer problems. So if you look at page 1, I will read the new title of the resolution. Approving for inclusion in the 2018 Maui County Legislative Package a state bill prohibiting the use, sale, or distribution for sale. The use or distribution for sale is what is underscored of skincare products containing oxybenzone and oxynoxate. Further down the page, you'll see under the first be it resolved, the same inclusion of the words use or distribution of sale for sale is also changed under the first paragraph, number 1. And if you go into the bill, which is Exhibit A, we are changing on page 3, section 3, the very bottom of the page in red, members. Chapter 187 Hawaii Revised Statutes is amended by adding a new section in Part 1 to be appropriately designated to read as follows, which is inclusion of 187A. And Shelley, is there any other changes?
Madam Chair, just for the record, Section 3 of the bill should state and make reference to Chapter 187A, Hawaii Revised Statutes.
Section 3, 187A. Okay, is that line 21? Or are you saying Chapter 187?
Line 18 on page 3 of the bill.
Thank you. So Section 3, Chapter 187, after 87, there should be A. But staff will make non-substantive changes appropriately. So members, you were passed out the proposed language as suggested with Mr. White's amendment to this. Anyone have any discussions?
So if you, Chair, I don't know if you'd like me to amend my motion to move to pass the reso as amended.
Okay, yes, yes. Do I have a second? Okay, so motion made by Mr. White and seconded by Ms. Crivello. And so we are going to be voting on the resolution as you receive, members. Any discussion? Ms. Cochran?
Sure, thank you. Wait, so let me see here. The line 16 of the bill, that's all this underscored paragraphs.
Wait, what page are you on?
I don't have numbers. Oh, wait, sorry, I do have numbers. Page 2. So starting on line 14 all the way down, this whole section, this underscored section is being added in. Was part of my original motion, and now the red is the new amended from today.
Correct.
Is that, okay, because I see the distribute for sale has been always there.
Yes.
So now.
Madam Chair, the distribution for sale affects HRS 328. However, by adding in the use of sunscreen containing these ingredients, that affects Chapter 187A of the HRS and was added in as Section 3 of the proposed bill you see before you.
Okay, all right, yeah, thank you for that clarification. No, that's all, Chair,
Okay.
thank you.
So at this time, members, we're voting on the amendment from Mr. White. Any discussion? Seeing none. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None. Okay, so right now we have 6 ayes and 1 excused and 3 excused. We have Don Guzman as well as Alika Atai not here and Kelly King. So motion passes. At this time, we'll have the main motion, so we'll go back to the main motion. So we're now going to be voting on approving in the 2018 Maui County legislative package a state bill prohibiting this. So now we have to change the heading, prohibiting the use, sale, or distribution for sale of skincare products containing oxybenzone and oxynoxate, as well as a bill for an act relating to oxybenzone and oxynoxate, and adding any non-substantive changes by the staff. Members, any questions? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? None. So we have 6 ayes, 3 excused. The motion passes. Members, that is the end of our meeting. Thank you very much for being here. Our next meeting is going to be on October the 16th, of which time we'll take up, at Mr. Hokama's request, the Lanai Planning Commission nominee will be asked to be on the Lanai office, as well as, and that's it, right? Thank you, members. Meeting adjourned.
I'm without you. Can't think right anymore.